welcome back. Hi there, we are back again here on YouTube in this pre-recorded, but I am actually that way. I'm getting better. I am actually in the chat on this side of the screen whilst this is going on. So we're technically live, but not quite, in this weird kind of COVID age that we are living in. And COVID is a big theme of this particular video. Now, disclaimer, I appreciate that COVID is a big topic. So if you feel unable to watch this video, that's totally cool. Feel free, go ahead, skip to the next one, and I will see you in a little bit of time. However, for those of you who would like to stay, today's topic is kind of like twofold for this particular video, and that is to help with these guys. So in the top corner over here, you will notice not only the World Book Day, because today is indeed World Book Day and we are celebrating everything to do with literature, fiction and more, but specifically to do with UNICEF. As part of that, every year I write something that its aim is to be a charity thing, kind of give back to the community, and that is what I have been doing since I started doing this, which isn't long, but you know, thought counts. And this year I have chosen to support UNICEF, and the reason I have chosen to support UNICEF has a lot to do with what they are doing in order to help support and provide vaccines for third world countries. Not that long ago, they provided the first load of vaccines arrived in Ghana, and since everything has been happening, they have managed to reach, quite frankly, millions of health workers and teach them on how to manage the virus, and instruct them on things like face masks, social distancing measures, etc. And they have also helped ensure that almost 250 million children have managed to continue their education despite the fact that schools are closed. They are aiming to deliver history to some of these countries, so they are looking at millions of syringes to be able to give the vaccine to these people. 5 million safe disposal boxes that are right now ready to be delivered, and they are looking to raise, around £44, which will deliver 25 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. A COVID vaccine currently is about 15 quid. Some of you are probably wearing jeans that cost you more money than that vaccine, and yet in the day and age that we live in, there are entire countries out there who simply can't afford that in order to be able to give them to their population. And I personally, quite frankly, find it a little sickening that whilst the West bickers about who has the biggest amount of vaccines currently being delivered and whether or not that they should have one vaccine over another vaccine, there are billions of people who would quite frankly not really care and would want any vaccine right now. And that's basically what the Shade Reaver, this book, is about. It's about helping to provide that. Now, I may not raise that level of money, however, every little penny counts towards this. And I think the most important thing is it's not going to cost you the earth. Shade Reaver retails at £5 in English currency. I'm not quite sure what that is in US currency, on account of the fact that you guys have taxes and things. Nor do I know exactly what it would be in the EU, on account again of taxes and things. However, it is available across the world globally, so no matter where you are watching this, there's almost certainly a way for you to get hold of this. And it doesn't matter from which official source And I say official because, unfortunately, in the day and age we live in, there are some people who will pirate stuff. As long as you're getting it from an official source, you can be sure that you are helping to deliver that. And whether we together manage to raise £44 or whether or not we manage to raise a tenner, it's irrelevant. We will put something towards this, and we will help part of the world feel a little brighter tomorrow. Cardric, first commander of the Silver Fortress, Marshal of the Iron Pass, opened the human mercenary from shoulder to hip with a sawing reverse of his blade. A surprised grunt issued from its stubborn face as it swayed, somehow still remaining upright. Desperately, it struggled to hold inside its squirming guts as it swung a crude axe down at the Dwentari with a torrent of blasphemies. Humans, he had to give it to them, were hard-wearing. But the wound made it sluggish. Cardric sidestepped the clumsy strike and broke its kneecap with a steel-toed kick. The man sunk to the ground with a cry that was quickly strangled as he plunged a dagger through its throat. A human shuddered as its body caught up with the fact that it was already dead. He tore the dagger loose and booted the body away. Blood from the torn artery sprayed in a wide arch and painted his snarling helm of bronzed armour red. All around him his brothers and sisters were making short work of the others. He breathed in deeply, partly to drink the wetness from the air, partly to feel the raw pleasure of doing so. This patrol had been nothing but an entree of the feast yet to come. He looked up. Some of the humans were fleeing. A stocky shape thundered past him, and he arrested the warrior's charge with a firm grip. "Let them go," he ordered, in a voice thick with accent. "Let them speak of what is coming." The warrior inclined his helmet and backed away. Cardric returned his gaze, eyes narrowed. As endemic as humans were across all the lands, there was never enough. A shout accosted him from his left. He looked up. Along the length of the narrow valley, scattered mobs of Droragar were still fighting. Cardric admired their tenacity. Though their morale was broken, the Droll did not run like their human mercenaries. They held on with the dull wisdom of a cornered beast. Not as hardy as humans, the Droll made up for their lack of muscle mass with an abnormal dexterity. Their battle skill was admirable, but against the war engine of the Dwenter Empire there was no chance of victory. For every one of them still standing, 2 more twitched on the ground, with blood foaming from in their mouths. Dwentari infantry plunged headlong into the fray, hacking and sawing with frenzied abandon. Behind them, the war-beast cavalry were now galloping up the steep incline toward the fracas. The huge lizard-like beasts carried 2 Dwentari apiece, a rider and a fighter, and stood easily 5 feet from ground to jaw. A shower of arrows hammered into the cavalry as they thundered past. On a cleft of rock high above them, a dozen or so shapes swiftly reloaded. Cardric shouted a warning at the top of his lungs, pointing at the interlopers. The Droll traded a second glittering hail of arrows and retreated, sprinting along the ledge as the Dwentari began to climb in their direction. "Hounds!" Cardric yelled above the cacophony, and a moment later the rattle of chains and whine of howls joined the chaos. The wolves ran along the flanks, the retreating sentries, pulling down the isolated and the slow, swallowing the Droll warriors in a tsunami of mange-ridden fur and bared fangs. Cardric gazed across the mayhem, with a look that could have cut stone, sensing the kindred mood of his opposite number coming from somewhere across the battlefield. He had come to torment the prey, but now he was starved of challenge. A stamp of hooves and an ebullient cry of strange voices called Cardric away from the abstract of battle. Though the congested melee, a mounted warrior in shimmering plate and sea-green silk barged towards him. The spear in his hand bore the colours and symbols of some renown. Not that it mattered to Cardric. He watched and reaffirmed the grip on his own weapon as his new foe knuckled aside a Dwentari berserker beneath the tread of his steed. With a shout, Cardric pivoted on the spot and smacked his sawtooth blade into the legs of the animal. The horse screamed as it collapsed into the earth, sending its rider rolling. Had it not been for the quickness of his movement, the droll would have surely been crushed beneath his own mount. Instead, he stood, dragging his battered helm from his head and regarding Kardrik with bitter, almond-shaped eyes. Kardrik smiled as the droll commander howled bestially with its final strides, sweeping a curved longsword high overhead. Their blades met, the teeth shrieking into the larger blade's descent. It was not a parry. He struck at the weapon as if meaning to do it harm. The impact of it vibrated up his arm to his teeth. It shocked his fingers open, and he would have lost his weapon were it not for the hooked barbs that pierced his skin, stitching his palm to the hilt. The droll reeled backwards from the force of the blow, trailing its heavy sword behind it, elbows locked in a spasm of aftershock. Kardrik spun his weapon backhanded and struck off the warrior's head with a single blow to the neck and laughed. A moan echoed across the battle as what little remained of the droll force beheld their commander cut down. Bereft of leadership, they turned and fled, tripping over each other in their haste to leave. The Dwentari pursued, caught in the bloodlust of battle. A fever raged in their veins that no level of war could subdue, and their armour, lighter than those of their mounted brothers, clattered a testament in bone tallies of the foes that they had conquered. "Secure the dead!" bellowed a jaundiced warrior wearing a cruel cuirass of scythe-like plates and mail. He slid down from his mount, patting the lizard's muzzled snout, even as it hissed a warning. Kardrik knew this hardy soul as Galanan. The newcomer motioned to a group of warriors. "Bring up the wagons! If the camp is not ready before moonrise, you will live to regret it." Rattling across the broken land came a dozen large carts. Each was drawn by 6 wheezing reptiles, their wheels the size of a man, with a wooden parapet scored by dozens of battles. The drovers called a halt, and the beasts snuffled in their harnesses, spitting and biting at each other's sides as the procession came to a stop. Across the valley, the roar of battle was replaced with the wet cracking of hacked limbs, interposed by the occasional scream for mercy. The bodies of the droll and humans were dragged and hung from broken remains of trees or lashed to rocks. Already flocks of crows were circling in anticipation. Galanan stomped his way to Kardrik's side and observed the ritual desecration of the dead. "He will be unhappy. You have allowed too many to leave. They will return to punish us in much greater numbers." Kardrik sneered. Galanan was old enough that he had fought beside the Iron Lord when the Dwenter nation had still been fractured horde of rival enclaves and lacked enough ambition to eclipse the warrior he now followed. This was not a battle. I was sending a message. I'm not here to scavenge and raid. He scanned the confusion of the dead for the enemy commander. Enemy uniforms of every stripe and colour littered the valley from wall to wall. It had been a massacre. Even the sky reflected the vivid clash. The evening haze that blanketed the heavens streaked with red from the bleeding sun on the horizon. The twisted trees, now burdened by the weight of dead men, swayed under opposing winds. Kardrik felt a shiver trace along his spine, though he couldn't say why. There was something there, hidden by the smell of blood and earth. Not a glimpse of a figure, but the suggestion of one, wrapped in extending shadows. An inkling, perhaps, or a glamour that refused to fully fade. Nothing he could later describe with claim of certainty. In a blink of an eye it was gone. He shook his head and observed the erection of the camp around him, yet he could never quite lose the sense of watchfulness from his mind. Like a nagging question he couldn't answer. It felt like judgment, though for which particular crime he didn't care. There would be glory, and that was all that mattered. Whatever it was, let it watch, let it judge.